So REScoop.eu is the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives, and that's also something that you can read on the site. But we are a federation of about 1,900 energy communities from across Europe. Most of them are energy cooperatives.
How autonomous are the communities that participate in REScoop? I mean, if they can really exist without support from the state or traditional energy providers?
I can maybe start and say that this really depends again on, as Helene was saying, the level of maturity of the community. Because you have, for example, EcoPower in Belgium, which is one of the largest energy cooperatives in Europe, but also the largest one in Belgium. And it both produces and supplies energy to its members. And really, you can see that it has become such a dominant market actor. It has more than 70,000 members. And it has, throughout, for example, the energy crisis, it kept providing customers with, and its members basically, with much lower electricity prices compared to commercial, let's say, suppliers. Helped set up now one of the largest cooperative energy suppliers in France, which is REScoop. And I think that we're also involved with helping Energia in Spain, which is another very large energy cooperative.
So for an energy community to establish itself in the current energy markets is very hard to do. It's very competitive. It's very much, it's led by big incumbent energy companies that have all the lobby and power within these energy markets. So for small citizen-led players, it's very difficult to establish themselves. It takes a lot of time, and what we see is that in countries where there's more recognition of what energy communities could do in the energy markets, there's at least already some sort of a framework which allows them to be established. While in others, it remains very, very difficult to just solely get the recognition of what they could do, what they could mean in the energy system. And on top of that, there's a lot of administrative burdens. So we still see that although we have a couple of member states that have been more progressed in recognizing energy communities, it still remains a very difficult environment for most of them to be set up.
What is the share of alternative energy resources in your communities? Are there some of them that use green hydrogen already?
I'm not aware of any energy community that is working with green hydrogen. Maybe one in Scotland or something like that. That I've only heard of a very minor pilot. But if you think that even commercially, green hydrogen is such a small element right now, even in large multinational businesses, I would hardly expect energy communities to be working on it. But most are working on solar and wind. I would say these are, let's say, the two dominant activities, and specifically solar because it's a small, cheap, mature, modular technology that everyday citizens can access.
REScoop support electric vehicles projects. If yes, why do you think that they are a good option for the future energy economy, climate change, and environmental protection?
There are indeed some members of REScoop.eu that specifically focus on mobility, on electric mobility, on share mobility. I think, for example, about the Mobility Factory, which is working on this. Also, Mobilitat, Spartago. So these are a couple of examples. Why this is good is because it really, it's broadens the scope of that sort of share and that share economy, and the solidarity that you build between citizens and the community feeling is extended beyond energy to mobility and all sorts of key aspects within our current society and our daily lives. So I think that only strengthens the case that we are making here. The way that it is envisioned in the current market model or neoliberal model that we have now for the economy, it's the electric vehicle idea is just a substitute for what we have now. So we change all the cars that we have now for electric cars, but that means that we ignore all the issues that we have with the amount of cars that we have, with all the resources that go in building these cars. So I think there, okay, definitely we are going to have to still make use of cars, and I think it's super idealistic, or it's just not realistic as well to think that in the future world nobody will have a car or will use a car anymore, or will use all sorts of public transport. I mean, that would be great if we could do everything with public transport, but I think that a good solution that goes in between is these shared electric vehicles, so that you at the same time diminish the amount of cars that you find in a city or on the streets, but that you still give the possibility to people and to citizens to make use of those cars when they mostly
A very
need
interesting question, in the sense that yes, if we just keep doing more of the same, but we do it with renewable energy, then it's really not going to work, because we're still gonna hit up against resource boundaries, boundaries of space, boundaries of pollution. So we really do need to start thinking of alternative ways of economic organizing. And this is a conversation we have within REScoop of, for example, the donut economics of trying to achieve a good life for all, but within planetary boundaries, of degrowth, of moving beyond economic growth and profit as a guiding tool. And we are seeing some of these conversations happening within energy communities across Europe of, okay, yeah, we might be using, let's say, an electric vehicle, but also how do we share it? How do we create an application to share the same electric vehicle, so that not each one of us owns an electric vehicle and we end up having an even higher impact, if we just use cars. So yeah, definitely having these deeper sustainability conversations.
Problems the energy communities face. Could you be more specific about the Greek energy communities as a problem? I mean, obstacles from lobbies, as you said before, or from governments, or from infrastructure, whatever you see as a problem.
A big problem, I would say, and the things that I will say now apply both to Greece, but also generally across Europe with cooperatives that we've spoken with. First of all, it's the fact that, as you also said, infrastructure, many times there's not enough grid capacity. So smaller renewable energy communities are trying to connect their, again, small project to the grid, but then they get a rejection letter because of the grid being fully saturated, let's say. And this also has to do with the fact that many very large-scale incumbents, as Helene said, are installing huge-scale projects like gigawatt-scale renewable energies, thus completely taking up all the space in the grid and not leaving any space for energy communities. And this has to do with, let's say, political priorities and prioritization. Like, who do you want primarily to support to be producing renewable energy? The large players, sometimes they're the same ones that are producing fossil fuels as well, or smaller communities. Another thing, and this again is very important both in Greece but also abroad, is corporate capture. So what we see with again, large private investors setting up fake energy communities just to reap the benefits that an energy community might get under certain legal frameworks. But in reality, they're not, open, voluntary, not-for-profit entities. They're just a group of 3 to 5, 10 people, let's say, that want to quickly set up a renewable energy project and sell the energy to the grid. And a third thing that comes to mind, and then Helene, please also jump in, is the lack of information. in Greece again, but in many other places, despite the fact that the European directives ask for member states to create tools so that citizens can access information around energy cooperatives, this has not happened in Greece and in most other countries. So many people still don't know what an energy community is, how can they join one, how can they benefit from one. And there are some very positive examples, like Spain now is using its Recovery and Resilience Fund to set up transformation offices all across the country, where citizens can go and they can learn anything about an energy community. But this needs to happen across all EU member states in a much more systematic way.
You prepare the ground for the next question. How often you have to fight for your right? For example, in Greece, government gives much more energy space to big electric companies than communities. Do you think that that dialogue is the only way to change this?
I think definitely dialogue, but to make dialogue effective, you also need to network. You also need to come together with other energy communities and supportive civil society actors and collectively raise your voices to advocate for change. This is something that we are doing in Greece. We are also, as Electra Energy now, with my second hat, we have been helping set up for 2 years now a national cluster of energy communities, and we have drafted letters towards the ministry about also the new legislation, about things that need to change. This is also something that REScoop, for example, supported to happen in the Czech Republic. They supported the creation of, let's say, a national federation of energy cooperatives. And at the end of the day, this is also what the REScoop is all about, right? It's a network of citizen energy cooperatives. And one of the things it does, as Helene said in the beginning, is to lobby the EU for supportive policies to enable citizen participation in the energy transition.
That means that maybe in your future projects include some protests against, let's say, this unfair sharing of grid. I mean,
I guess REScoop is not so much involved in, let's say, activism in the sense of, yeah, this like actually going and blockading, I don't know, a wind park or something, or an oil rig. But it is involved in, yeah, all sorts of campaigns, including signing on open letters, screening documentaries, participating in marches and in street protests. So in a way, yes. I guess the answer is yes to your question.
Okay. So we can proceed with the next one. Have you noticed energy communities transform to full autonomous communities? I mean, actually food production and maybe minimum commercial transactions with the outside world.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's the end goal in a way, at least the way that I see it, in the sense that, you know, within our communities, we do try to cultivate skills, we do try to educate each other. We do, as I said before, try to instill this holistic sense of sustainability. But I guess this is a vision for further out into the future. Right now, we're all still struggling with even, you know, setting up our first renewable energy projects. So.
Yeah, I think that's indeed that would be amazing if that could happen. On the other hand, I think we're so connected and globalized and so dependent on so many resources that come from many different parts in the world that I think that to a large extent you still maintain some of that connectedness or yeah, that autonomy is not really reachable for a lot of communities.